Ezekiel thumping out this message. I will put my spirit in you, and you shall live. Ezekiel's message is that something that was dead, that is, the disunity between the north and the south kingdoms, can be fixed. They can be reunited. They can live again, centering, he saw, on the future rebuild of the great city of Jerusalem and its temple. The nations can be restored and revitalized. And he believed that God's Spirit can make that happen. I'll put that Spirit in you, and you shall live. Do we believe that? Do we believe that that same Spirit can still bring healing and peace and unity to the nations across the world? Ezekiel was talking about nations. Do we believe that? As it was being applied to those two ancient kingdoms, can it still work? Can it be applied to North and South Korea, to Ireland and Northern Ireland, to Cyprus, Greek and Turkish? Can it still bring peace in the Middle East? Can it reconcile Hungary and Serbia, between Spain and its northern Basque territory? And yes, even between Israel and Palestine. You say. That's a bit far-fetched, isn't it? Not possible. Well, tell that to Nelson Mandela as he rots away in his Robben Island cell, recalling every single day that he is in that cell, and remembering the two nations that existed in South Africa, black and white, and further divided by rich and poor. Ask him, as he looks towards his 28 years of imprisonment, ask him if the Spirit can heal. And whilst you're doing that, at the same time, ask Father Trevor Huddleston, an Anglican priest who's fighting against apartheid at the same time, or Albert Luthuli, or Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Ask them if the Spirit can bring healing. Well, you might say, if you're asking those questions of those people, even if it were possible, there would be bloodshed and revenge. And then stand back for a moment and look at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that Mandela introduced, demonstrating healing and forgiveness and reconciliation. I think when you do that and you look at that, you can see dead bones coming back to life. And then there was Rosa Parks, forced to sit in the black section of the Mississippi bus and then give up her seat to a white person, and who, along with tens of thousands of other black citizens, were told where to go to the toilet, where they could and could not eat, and even who they were allowed to love and to marry. Tell her that the Spirit cannot change things, or that one day there would be a black president of the United States. And tell that same thing to Martin Luther King Jr., himself inspired by Rosa Parks, a man who with the power of the Spirit went on to change that world. A bit closer to our own time, offer that same pessimism to Angela Merkel, who leads a country still living with the shame of the concentration camps. A country which itself, within the last couple of decades or so, was divided, east and west. Tell her that countries can't change. And listen to her words as she leads a country. She says, a country where nobody will be abandoned and nobody excluded. To exclude groups of people because of their faith isn't worthy, she says, of this country. It isn't compatible with our essential values, and it's humanly reprehensible. Xenophobia, racism, extremism has no place here, she says, and we are fighting to ensure that they don't have a place elsewhere either. I believe that's the Spirit moving. Tell Mikhail Gorbachev that the spiritual influence of his grandparents has no place in his life in breaking down the Iron Curtain and giving back liberty and freedom to millions of people across the then communist world. No, I truly believe that dear old Ezekiel, what he was talking about nearly 3,000 years ago, is alive and well and continuing to change the world. The power of the Spirit is alive and active in this world. But then take a look at the church. There's the church. The immobile rock, the solid bulwark of orthodoxy, totally intransigent to change, immovable for centuries, and dictatorial to its poor followers, and which for 1,500 years was able to totally control its worshippers by conducting its services in a totally ancient and foreign language. Well, this very year, 2017, we celebrate 500 years since the Reformation. Beginning with Martin Luther, hammering on the door of Castle Church, Wittenberg, his declaration of belief. Here I stand, I can do no other. And whose spirit dramatically changed the course of the church, enabling people to worship in their own language and to play an informed part in the church to which they belong. That act, 500 years ago, truly shook the very foundations of the church. And we celebrate it this year. And the organization of which I am the president, Melbourne City Churches in Action, the organization that is leading the walk through the city on Good Friday, we will be celebrating that. We will be celebrating that Reformation, the 500 years, with some big event in probably in Fed Square. I'll keep you informed of that. And that will include the Catholic Church, let me tell you, as well as the Lutheran Church and all the other churches in this city. It was the Spirit moving in the church. Fabulous. But what happened? Well, the church is good, isn't it? Really good at being stimulated, enthused, inspired, set on light, and then going to sleep. It's very good at that. We've been doing it for hundreds of years. And so it did. And throughout its history, it has constantly needed reawakenings. That's what Ezekiel was doing in 600 BC, reawakening. And church history is littered with people rattling the cage. People like Robert Brown, who in the 1620s stood up to the orthodoxy and bureaucracy in the Church of England and fought for an independent spirit within the church. And that gave birth to the Congregational or the independent church movement, of which we are proud inheritors. And then, of course, there is John Wesley, who with George Whitefield and Charles Wesley changed the face of the church worldwide. He was an Anglican priest who got fired up with the irrelevance of the established church to ordinary people. And his spirit was set alight. He dates it, the 24th of May, 1738. He says, when his heart was strangely warmed. Strangely warmed? It was a burning, ferocious furnace. The Anglican Church, even though he was an Anglican priest, wouldn't let him preach in their churches. They banned him. And so he started to preach outdoors. They banned him from preaching outdoors in their parishes. And he famously replied by standing on his father's gravestone and saying, "You can't stop me preaching here." And not only did he preach a message of vitality and energy, he was a great social reformer. He led the world in addressing issues such as slavery and prison reform. And he ensured that that became part of the work of the church, which it still is to this day. And he smashed much of the accepted orthodoxy of the church of the day, like apostolic succession, which the Anglican Church believed took them right back to the disciples themselves. He called it a fable. His spirit inspired people around the world, and it spread around the world like a massive flame. And it's said that the British counterpart to the French Revolution was diverted because of Wesley. I continue now to be inspired by his life and his words. Words like this: do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can. Yes, but of course it didn't take long before that very church which he founded itself had become an institution. And it took other people in the 19th century, like Hugh Bourne and William Clowes, to break away from the Wesleyan Church. It had all become too formal and upper-class controlled. And so the primitive Methodist Church came into existence, which provided itself a birthplace for the Salvation Army and Pentecostalism, a birthplace for the trade union movement and the Labour Party, all of which now no longer have that spirit and energy where they began. And so it goes on and on today. Can this slumbering giant wake up? I've been wondering about whether to tell you this story, but I think I will. A few years back, I was invited to preach at a very, very, very posh church. I won't tell you where. But it was really, really posh. But it was a church that had seriously, metaphorically and literally gone to sleep. I say literally because when I walked into the church early on that Sunday morning, the people were sitting there. Half of them were asleep. They were sitting in their pews asleep. Now, at the time, I was living up in Yea, which was about a 3-hour drive from where I needed to travel to conduct this service. So I walked through the sleeping church, and I got into the back of the church, and I spoke to the elder, who proceeded, like now, to wire me up for the radio mic. So I'm all set with my radio mic and everything and ready to go. And because I'd had such a long drive, I was desperate to get on with the service and also to go to the bathroom. You know what's coming, don't you? So I'm in the bathroom there, using all its facilities. And then I realized when I saw the radio mic was switched on, that the whole of my ablutions that morning had been broadcast to the whole of this very upper-class church. I walked into that church and they were all awake. With a big smile on their face. I sure woke them up, yes. The church still needs that spirit of awakening. We still need to provide the wake-up call. It still needs the dynamism and the progressive thinking of the very, very best of its past to alert the present. It still needs that spirit. In the New Testament, the Greek word dunamis is used 120 times. And it's from that word that the word dynamo comes. Dunamis is the power or the energy of the Spirit. And it's this power which is still claimed. We claim it today. It's claimed by people such as Paul Tillich or Martin Buber or Rudolf Bultmann or Soren Kierkegaard or Matthew Fox or Robert Funk or Bishop John Robinson or John Spong or Francis McNabb. We claim it. And whoever comes next. And we have a role in our church. We have a responsibility to influence and engage with other churches, both outside and within the uniting church, to wake up this sleeping giant. We don't want in a few years' time a few tired, surviving remnants of that thing they used to call the church to wake up like Rip Van Winkle and discover that the church has slept through a revolution. This is the task for us today, to carry the flame of reason, to keep that spirit alive in the whole church. We might, in the context of the whole church, be small, But a bit like the pilot light on a gas cooker, the ignite button can be pressed and we can bring on the full heat in a second. Let's bring those old bones back to life again. The Spirit can move in the world, it can even move in the church. And, of course, what about us? We are reminded of the words of Jesus to you and to me. It's a very personal message. He says, I came that you may have life, and life in all its fullness. So what does this Spirit bring to these tired old bones of ours? Well, I believe it's pretty powerful. It is this dunamis, this dynamo, this power, and it lies within each one of us. It's there for us to find, not as an outward gift, but as an inward personal revelation. As the Dalai Lama says, happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions. But we know, don't we, that as we seek for this perfect life, we come across pretty awful barriers in the way. The bones are a bit creaky and sometimes don't work at all. So what does the Spirit urge us towards? To really grasp what Wesley called the path to perfection. Well, there's many, many things, and here are just a few. Because the first one is relationships. We need each other. Not to be in each other's pocket, but to get to each other's story, to know and to understand the stories of each other. And we need to make a conscious effort to find each other's story and to listen to them. You know, even in the church, we can sit next to each other week in and week out. We can be in the same pew, around by the same people, and only have a cursory knowledge of the lives of the people around us. I want us to make an effort today to reach out. Move a little bit away from your familiar group. Go find some stuff about another person. And in so doing, you will be revealing something of yourself to them. Relationships are being built, and the Spirit is moving. And the second way that the Spirit moves is about personal resilience. This is about meeting life's problems not as stumbling blocks, but as challenges, and helping someone else to meet theirs too, with confidence and courage. The third is to create strength out of weakness. Because often what you see as a weakness or a problem can be converted into a strength. For example, what you might see as loneliness can be converted into the potential for meditation or prayer or study. You remember the story that I shared, I think, last week about my daughter Primrose in the nativity play and her bursting out into a made-up speech that wasn't on the script. Well, we got that. We've got the freedom to do that. Freedom to do whatever we like, and we can claim it. And then the fourth thing is inner strength. I really do believe that we all have an inner strength that we do need to call on. Destroy past negative feelings. Get rid of mistakes we've made in the past. Dispose of guilt, opportunities lost. We need to separate ourselves from them and look forward, not backward. And we can all do this, calling on each other and to the knowledge of others who've done it before us. We can all respond to the power of the Spirit, its energy, its power, its dynamism and its courage. And then and only then can the world, the church, and ourselves dance to a new tune. Dance to a new tune and bring those old bones back to life and hear the word of the Lord. Let us pray. Healing Spirit, let us sing and dance to a new tune. Let us be empowered by its fire. Let it reach into our inner soul and continue to change and inspire our lives, our church, and our world. And the blessing today is from the Talmud, a rabbinic exposition on Jewish scripture. Go, do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justice now, love mercy now, walk humbly now. You are not obliged to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it.